What did you take away from the coaches today? What did you get? Now we kind of you were talking to Griese. I went over and
Griese.
talked to Anthony Lynn, and then Fleury, and then Griese was so bombarded. I did watch a lot of the Griese stuff that you put out on YouTube in the afternoon or the second session. I spent almost all of my time talking to Chris Koceric, and I didn't get a chance to talk to anybody else. So we kind of maybe talked to different guys today. What were your takeaways from the coaches that you got a chance to talk to?
I talked to two guys. Griese, because I'm interested about the quarterbacks, and Bobby Turner, because like I'm his biggest fan. I love Bobby Turner. Like he was right behind me. Jerry McDonald was talking to him, and Jerry asked him a question. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. But it's like one of those questions like with Chris Koceric. Like Koceric doesn't want to be a coordinator. He just wants to be a D-line coach. And I think Jerry was thinking, like, are you that way with running backs? Like, are you just like a pure running back expert? That's all you've ever wanted. You have no more aspirations. And Bobby was like, nah, like, I would have loved to be a coordinator. I would have loved to be a head coach. Like, I just don't think the owners saw me fit to do that. And it just like broke my heart to hear a 70-something-year-old man say that, at the end of his career, when I really look at Bobby Turner as like Yoda in this whole outside zone scene. Like, he was coaching outside zone at Ohio State when Kyle Shanahan was in freaking middle school. So I just kind of like poked my head into a one-on-one interview, and I was like, isn't it weird that anytime a coach is labeled a genius, he's like my age, when Bobby Turner has been doing this since the freaking 80s? And he looked at me and said, thank you. Thank you for saying that. The other thing Jerry said was, well, have you ever been more than a position coach? And I'm a freaking Bobby Turner like fan. So I just like, before Bobby could say anything, I was like, yeah, Purdue. Yeah, Ohio State. Yeah, Mike Allstott. Yeah. So I love Bobby Turner, and I wish he would get more recognition, because it's always someone like my age or younger who's like, man, this guy is just so ahead of the curve. Like, no, it's Bobby. And I'd love to see what Kyle does in his career when Bobby finally hangs it up, because he's the cheat code behind the Shanahans. But that's neither here nor there. What I want to talk about is Griese. You were there for some of Griese. I was there for like 16 minutes. The beginning.
You got more of Griese. I watched I watched a good chunk that you put of the stuff that you got from Griese. You put some of it on YouTube, and I watched that whole file. What percentage of the dialogue with Griese did you put on YouTube?
So I think he was sitting there for half hour. I got 16 minutes. So I guess the first half, and I felt like that was enough. But because I think it was pretty clear, we talked to him about all the quarterbacks. The way I saw it was, he didn't have a whole lot to say about Sam Darnold. I felt like that's Kyle's guy, and I'm not really sure that, I don't know. He didn't really have a whole lot to say about Sam. He was asked first about Trey, and I thought his body language was kind of transparent. I mean, he gave a big sigh. I'm not saying he doesn't want to talk about Trey, but I feel like Trey dominates the conversation. He's not the starting quarterback, but we make the most videos about him. We ask the most questions about him, and maybe from his perspective, it's like, this is where we're starting. So when you ask about Brock, he lights up. As soon as you get to the Brock Purdy discussion, he either gets defensive about Brock's rehab, or
I did hear him get defensive. I did hear you ask him, well, Brock can't throw for 3 days. Who said he couldn't throw for 3 days?
Okay, I said he couldn't throw. Yeah. The doctor said he couldn't throw. I don't know. So he pushes back on that kind of stuff, which is fine. Right. Like, be his advocate. That's cool. But when you ask, like at the end, I asked him, what kind of relationship do you have with Brock? You must be so proud of the work you and him have been able to accomplish the past 12 months. And he really, really got into that question. And I think his answer to that was the most telling thing about how he feels about Brock and how he feels about Trey. And I'm just reading into it. But he said something that stuck out. He said, the thing that really impressed me about Brock is that when he got his opportunity, he made the most of it. And I can't tell you how many young quarterbacks let their opportunities slip through their fingers. And I was thinking, well, wow. I mean, if that was Brock's opportunity, 8 games, then you must feel like Trey had his opportunity too, and that he let it slip through his fingers. And I feel like what everyone is saying about Trey this offseason is that he's taking the initiative, right? He's showing urgency. And I think what they may have felt privately without saying it is that, man, this guy feels like it's just going to be his team one day. That he's just going to wake up and he's going to be good. And he hasn't really taken the initiative the way that Brock did. And I think he is taking the initiative now. And it's important to remember that he's younger than Brock. And these guys both have a lot of career ahead of them. But that was my takeaway, is that he's really into Brock. I think he sort of revealed what people have been down on with Trey. And I think this explains why Trey's stock is up, because he's finally maybe seen Brock Purdy do it, seen Brock Purdy model it, and he's gotten demoted a little bit. And now he's got his head on straight. I think that's what I took away from Griese's interview.
It does seem like they're challenging Trey to step up to the moment. It did see it. He did make the point to you at one point, or to the group, I should say, that what Brock did last year is not normal and should not be viewed as just like, hey, that's normal. That wasn't normal. They viewed that as abnormal, special, unique, not run of the mill, any other way you want to say it, right? I mean, they viewed what he did last year as spectacular. They're not using the word spectacular, but that was the sense I got.
Or let's put it this way. It may or may not be spectacular, but it's way beyond what they felt Trey could do in terms of the readiness, the poise, the whatever it was. They felt that a 23-year-old quarterback to be that poised, prepared, mature was not normal. But I still think they feel that Brock has a long way to go. I mean, Griese says that all the time in terms of mechanics. And
right.
Like, he still feels he has a lot of coaching to do for Brock, but he's just so proud of Brock's mindset. And I feel like the organization feels that Trey was lacking there, that they felt he was mature and ready for it. But maybe the way they got him, the way they gave him the job, the way they anointed him. They never anointed Brock until now. They're doing it now. But maybe they feel that he's earned it. So I don't know.
He definitely made it sound like, though he didn't run from the idea that Trey has improved quite a bit. And he did kind of state that flat out, that, that he has improved quite a bit. And that, who was it that asked about Christensen and working with him? And he said,
Jerry McDonald.
Yeah. And he said,
he's like the classic reporter. He asks every question you're supposed to. Shout out Jerry McDonald. Can't get mad at Jerry. He's doing his job. Let's like all of us. And he's doing it. He's been doing it forever. Sorry.
Right.
Jerry.
He's, Jerry's one of the guys I really look up to.
Me too. We all do.
He asks great
he's like
questions.
The senior member there.
Yeah. I mean, he's, you don't have a boiler. I have a smaller boiler. Jerry's got a bigger boiler. And eventually
you can be mad at me for asking a question, but if Jerry asked a question, it needed to be asked. It's Jerry McDonald. He knows the ropes. And I love that he let off with Trey and Christensen, because honestly, what Jerry was implying was, so let's talk about this coach that got all these results that you couldn't get.
Right. He was suggesting that Christensen is the key to unlocking what we're seeing right now in Trey, which is, I think, undeniably
true.
Dramatic improvement.
Yeah.
That's what I feel
there
like.
Yeah, I couldn't quite get these results, but thank you, John. Or Jeff Christensen, whatever your name is. Thank you, Jeff. I don't know.
But did it at any point? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much, if this was part of, was this on the video? Because I didn't see this part of it.
Yeah. I mean, the first question was about Christensen. I just like deep sigh, and he's like, yeah, I don't know. I just think it's funny. I feel like Kyle and Griese in particular don't want to talk about Jeff Christensen that much. It's just because I feel like Jeff Christensen is getting famous at their expense. His whole business model right now is, hey, I fixed Trey Lance in 90 days when the Niners couldn't do it in 2 years. Come work with me. And Kyle and Brian are like, this freaking guy. God, we're making him famous.
Kyle did push back, though, when you asked him about when you asked him about Beck or Christensen, and you said, you asked him if the 49ers put Christensen with him, and he said, we don't put anybody with anybody.
So 21 hours ago, Quincy Avery, who was Trey Lance's guy originally, Quincy Avery, right? Before the draft, all that. Someone asked Quincy Avery on Twitter yesterday, how many of your former clients have to overhaul their mechanics after working with you? Yikes. Quincy Avery says, none. Trey didn't work with me after draft prep. Kyle wanted him to work with someone who knew his system. So you would probably be better advised to talk to Kyle about that. Remember, Kyle said he never tells quarterbacks who to work with?
Right.
Well, Quincy Avery disagrees. And I do think that guy was John Beck. I think Kyle told... So that's what John Lynch was saying, right?
Kyle kind of denied that part of it. Kyle kind of said, hey, we never tell quarterbacks who to work with. They can choose on their own.
Yeah, let's just put Kyle to the side for a second, because I don't know. He's not very plain spoken. Let's say what John said. John said Trey was working with two coaches. Okay, so it was Quincy Avery and Kyle's guy, John Beck. And those two were probably coaching different things. John Lynch acknowledged that it wasn't a good thing. And then Trey, to his credit, said, leave me alone, everyone. I'm picking someone else and taking my life into my own hands. I think that's a big step in his career. I think it means a lot. He basically said, Kyle, leave me alone.
You know what's
I'm gonna do
interesting
this.
I found about the Christensen thing is that so much has been made over Christensen reworking Lance's mechanics as far as throwing the football. And I kind of wonder how much did he actually work with Lance on his upper body mechanics and ball placement? How much of it's the finger? Because when Lance was talking to us, he said kind of the bigger thing is my footwork and my lower half. He made it seem like his lower half adjustments are more important than where he changed. All I saw was that he used to rest the ball lower. Now he rests the ball a little higher. And so the distance from rest point to release point is shorter, which is, I think, a good thing. But when he was asked about it, he's like, well, it's my lower body mechanics that really has made a difference.
I think I know what they're talking about. I asked Kyle about this a few months ago. I think Trey's fine when he drops back. If he can just drop back, hit his back foot and throw, I think his footwork is fine. But that's not NFL football. NFL football is you drop back, there's pressure coming from somewhere, so you reset, or maybe you scramble a little bit. But like once you reset, where are your feet? Are you in a proper passing position, or are your feet parallel to the line of scrimmage? Are you in position to run, or are you in position to throw after your reset? And I think what Kyle was saying was he was not in a really good position to throw after he would get moved off his spot and he'd have to reset. So that's part of it. But I also think a bigger part of it is Trey's insecurities. Like, he doesn't want to talk about this. You know that.
I asked him to talk about it, and he said, I don't want to talk about it. Now, granted, you asked him to talk about it after a day, which was probably, in my opinion, his worst day. So, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't it that day where he kind of looked a little bewildered?
But I feel like he's been kind of consistent with that, like for years. He doesn't want to get into how quick his release is, where he dips his. He doesn't like talking about it, which I think is a mistake. I think he should be open about it because it just comes across as more confident that you won't duck the line of questioning when you know that's what you're working on. You know that's what people are judging you on. Just be open about it. So I think he doesn't want to talk about it. And maybe as a courtesy, Griese won't go there, and Kyle either.
Why do you think he doesn't want to talk about it? Because this is what I think. I think he doesn't want to talk about it just because to talk about things he's corrected, one, maybe shines a bad light on people that are his friends at North Dakota State. One, it maybe makes Kyle and the people at the 49ers unhappy because if they did suggest Beck in any way, or if Beck was in any way delivering a message from them, maybe it looks Beck look bad. Maybe that makes the spot hot for Trey. But I think also he just knows that he wants to let his play do the talking, and he doesn't want to be like, I've arrived, or like, it's like he doesn't want to look back on his improvement when he knows has a lot of improvement still to come. Does that make sense?
Maybe he's just sensitive. Maybe he's just sensitive and he doesn't want to incriminate.
Maybe it's just
maybe he doesn't want to incriminate. Maybe he's like, look, man, I'm on the stand here. I'm not going to incriminate myself. Like, if you want to get a quarterback guru and look at my tape and break it down, because I know I'm not doing, like, he knows he's not doing it right. He went to Jeff Christensen. God knows what Jeff Christensen said to him to get him to change everything and overhaul his delivery. So he knows he was doing it wrong. When asked, like, did you ever go back and watch the film? He's like, honestly, I don't like to. I don't like looking at what it like. He said that. That's honest. So I just don't. I think he's a little insecure about it. I understand. He's kind of young. He hasn't fixed it yet. He's in the process of it, and he just doesn't want to like get on the stand and incriminate him. So he's pleading the fifth. I would too. I mean, I'd want to, but I think as his attorney, Trey, I'm your attorney right now. I would recommend just answering the questions because I think you'll get people on your side. And I feel like he knows there are a lot of people that will never be on his side, that are just waiting to freaking crush him and get ammunition. I think he feels he's giving them ammunition by saying it himself. But you know what? You can't get him on your side. I think
he seemed uncomfortable in the last conversation we had with him. I thought he seemed uncomfortable.
It was bad.
I mean, we talked to him earlier this year. He seemed very comfortable. This time he seemed a little uncomfortable.